Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of November the 7th. I'll call the meeting to order. And the first item we have to deal with, of course, is adoption of the agenda. So I have a recommendation here that the agenda for the November 7th, 2022 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll go around the table with the disclosure of pecuniary interests with regard to anything on today's agenda. I have none to declare. Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
No.
Councillor Burke?
No.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is county council update. Welcome. Councillor Cork is in the house and is joining us live today. Welcome, Campbell.
I'm getting to be a bit of a fan of Zoom, but it doesn't make up for actually shaking your hand, Brooke. So that was really nice to get back and see the new council chamber. And for any that I haven't congratulated, Steve, Lisa, on your acclamation, thank you. And your worship, hard fought battle, and Sherry, you had the unique battle of fighting the invisible man. So congratulations on that. Anyway, what I'm wanting to give you a little report on, and thank you for taking the time to listen, is the community paramedicine program that comes from the Guelph Wellington Paramedic Service. And I got to say, it's a program that I find, and a lot of people find, just so special, and it's one that I'm so proud of. It gives me a great pleasure to bring you some information on it. The community paramedicine program started in 2014, and the goal is that it's trying to prevent emergencies before they happen and trying to prevent trips to the emergency department before they happen. And at the moment, they're providing service to more than 475 residents, that's of Wellington and Guelph, and it's funded through the province. The four kind of core initial services that started in 2014, the one was patient referrals, and that's if paramedics or other first responders to a 911 call find a patient that's in need of something other than a visit to the emergency department, the community paramedicine program is the one that can direct them if really their problem is housing, or if really their problem is a psychological problem, or if there's other problems beside that. They shouldn't be going to the emergency department. So that's one thing they do. They're also holding wellness clinics in apartment buildings that have a large proportion of seniors and who have a history of 911 calls to emergency. These wellness clinics have proven by the numbers to be really effective in reducing visits to the emergency department. Another thing they do is remote patient monitoring, which allows the paramedics to use the internet to monitor folks out there, whether it's blood pressure or really, I may be speaking out of turn, I'm not sure what they monitor all, but it's able to monitor and possibly anticipate a problem before it's a problem big enough that requires a trip to the emergency. They also do home visits. And again, it's to try to attempt those emergency room visits. That's how it got started. There's been a few additions to it because it certainly has been a success. And one by the Provincial Ministry of Long-Term Care is a community paramedicine long-term care project. And this provides services to residents who are on a wait list for long-term care or in-home care or any other kind of care. And it helps them by staying in touch with them to stay comfortably in their home while they wait for the wait list to play out. As of October of this year, 2022, the community paramedicine program has completed over 2,400 in-person and virtual visits with residents in Guelph and Wellington County. And just as an overall, you know, they're helping seniors and those who are fragile or at risk to find services that they may not be able to handle the technology of accessing. It offers that. And it's estimated that 3 out of every 10 of these visits by the community paramedicine program avoids a trip to the emergency department. There are 4 dedicated paramedics that are operating the program in Guelph, and there's 4 others that are operating the program in Wellington County. The Wellington County team is headquartered in Drayton. And with the number of it's so popular that the number that are being rostered now is the program is almost at its limit. And finally, in addition to all this, there's a relatively new service that's been incorporated into the community paramedicine project, and it provides care for patients who are palliative and who have expressed the wish to die with dignity in their home. And the community paramedics currently have a roster of approximately 30 palliative patients who they are helping to remain in their home. And I might just say, just a final little side note, is that during the pandemic, when there were patients recovering at home that were in, were vulnerable to a onset or re-onset or visit to emergency department, the paramedics were visiting their homes in person, and that also worked. So it's a very exciting and interesting and helpful program for our community, and I think we're fortunate to have it. And thank you for listening.
Thanks, Campbell. Certainly not a program everybody knows about. It's good to hear some of the details for helping those in our community that need the help. But any questions from council? Okay, thanks very much, Campbell. Okay, the next item is to move into recess the council meeting to move into a public meeting to deal with the Committee of Adjustments. So a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the November 7th, 2022 regular meeting of council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act. This is for Robert and Linda Carter, minor variance. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. So we're recessed from our council meeting. Switch gears here for a minute. And I'll call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. And we'll go through the disclosure of pecuniary interest on this agenda as well. I have none to declare. Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
Okay, thank you. So we'll first deal with the minutes of the previous Committee of Adjustment meeting. That's the one on September 12th when we dealt with A18, A19, and A20/22. And the recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes of September 12th, 2022, A18/22, A19/22, and A20/22 be adopted as presented. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve. Any questions on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to our application for today. This is application A21/22 for Robert and Linda Carter. The location of the subject property is described as Arthur Concession 12, Part Lot 6, Registered Plan 61R21305, Parts 3 and 4, and is municipally known as 6804 Side Road 3 West, Mount Forest. The property is approximately 0.55 hectares in size, and location of the property is shown on the map in your package. Purpose and effect of the application is to permit an accessory building to be constructed in the required front yard with reduced front yard setback. Further, a relief is also requested from the maximum height for the proposed accessory building. The applicants are proposing to construct a 185 square meter accessory building in the required front yard with a reduced front yard setback of 16 meters and a maximum height of 6.5 meters. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies, and posted on the subject property on October 18th, 2022.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Matthew. If you would mind giving us the report on this.
Yes, gladly. And I've been working here at the county for about 3.5 years, and this is my first in-person council meeting here in Wellington North. So happy to be here nonetheless. And as Councillor had alluded, I congratulate all of you on coming back for another term. So with that said, thank you, and through you, Chair. Before you today is minor variance application to provide relief from the minimum front yard setback and maximum height for an accessory structure. The applicant is proposing to construct a new garage for personal storage with a front yard setback of 52.5 feet, whereas the bylaw requires 100 feet. Additionally, the applicant is seeking relief to permit a maximum height of 21.3 feet, whereas the bylaw requires a maximum of 15 feet. As mentioned, the applicant has confirmed the storage will be for personal use to store the family's personal recreational vehicles, hence the height request. Planning staff have had discussions with the applicant as well as township staff to potentially push back the garage further from the road. However, this could not be achieved due to the hydro lines, which sits approximately in between the garage as well as the dwelling, and as well as the septic and well located on the subject lands. And with that said, planning staff have no concerns with the application, as the request is minor, meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. I see we have a letter from Agnes Strachan dated November 2nd. Do we have any further correspondence in respect to this application?
Along with that letter, we have received correspondence from the Saugeen Conservation Authority, and they are generally acceptable to the application.
Okay, thank you. Any persons wishing to be notified of the decision in this application must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer. And with that, I will open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. I see we have the applicants here. Did you wish to speak to this application?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions or comment on what in terms of security.
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to.
Yeah, I here to answer any questions. We have worked with a engineer to try and meet the requirements in both regards to the positioning on the property. And like was mentioned, the hydro lines that run across and serve our neighbors to the east cut through the property in a awkward place and require us to be about 4.8 meters away from that vertical distance. So because of that, it gets us closer to the allowance of the road than what bylaw allows. In terms of height, we've looked at roof design and depth of building and other alternatives to try and meet that to accommodate the motorhome that we have that's roughly 13 feet high. And there just doesn't appear to be anything that we can do to reduce the height in order to accomplish that. And as was mentioned, it is strictly for personal use and the storage of a tractor that we have and other items that are on the property. We have a couple of older sheds that we'll be removing and just using storage space within that building as a result.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else registered to speak on this application? Nope. Okay. So we'll open the floor for questions or comments from the committee. The only one question I had, and that is with regard, because this is a corner property. Is there any concern with sightlines around the intersection with this
No, this-
application?
Well, maybe you should speak. to that.
Yeah, I can jump in. So there are, I would say no. The short answer is no, there are none in this case. I think it's set back significantly enough that, yeah, there wouldn't be any concerns from that standpoint.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So we'll move to the decision at this point. And the decision reads as follows: that the minor variance applied for in application A21/22 for the property described as Arthur Concession 12, Part Lot 6, Registered Plan 61R21305, Parts 3 and 4 with a civic address of 6804 Side Road 3 West, provide the following relief. Number one, that a reduced front yard setback of 16 meters be permitted for a proposed accessory building, whereas the bylaw requires 30.5 meters. And two, that an increased height of 6.5 meters be permitted for a proposed accessory building, whereas the bylaw allows 4.57 meters. All those in favor? That's approved. Thank you. So we'll move on to adjourn our Committee of Adjustment meeting. A recommendation here that the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on November 7th, 2022 be adjourned at 2:16 p.m. I get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that concludes our Committee of Adjustment meeting. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll switch back to our regular council meeting now. And I have a recommendation here to resume the regular council meeting. And that reads as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the November 7th, 2022 regular meeting of council at 2:17 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Lisa, seconded by Sherry. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular meeting of council and the public meeting held on October 11th, 2022 be adopted as circulated. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. Any questions on those minutes? All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We're on to items for, we don't have any business arising from previous meetings, so we're on to items for consideration. Anything anyone would like to pull out of there for more discussion? Steve?
Can I get 3A pulled?
3A, that's the,
Pentecostal Church in Arthur,
yep, okay.
and 4A regarding Ace Home Hardware.
Mhm.
6B Smith Street in the MTO application,
Great.
and that should do it for me. Thank you.
Sherry?
So I'd like to have 2A and 4A.
2A, so 2A is the Lutheran Church.
Sorry,
Application.
4B.
4B,
4B. Sorry.
the Hawk's Nest.
Yes, please.
7A, so we need to pull 7A as well. There's been some minor changes there. Anything else, Lisa?
No, they got everything. Thank you.
Okay, so just to recap, we got 2A, 3A, 4A, 4B, 6B, and 7A. There's I'd like also to pull 7B. So if there's nothing else, I'll deal with the recommendation for all the others. And that recommendation reads that all items listed under items for consideration on the November 7th, 2022 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There, we're back up to 2A. This is the consent application related to the St. John's Evangelical Lutheran Church. There's a lengthy recommendation there that I trust you have in front of you that I won't read. And I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for that one. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Burke?
Yeah, so I had this pulled and I'd just like to say that I really understand that we require this type of housing. However, I think that we should possibly defer. I'm not saying no to this application. I'm just saying that possibly we should defer it until the developments that are in progress up there are completed. Because I think that if we add more homes in that area, there's a potential for some traffic impact. And I just think that we would do the community a real disservice until we have an opportunity to see what that development's going to look like.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I would just remind you, Councillor Burke, that really all we're doing at this stage is commenting, because this decision ultimately will be made by Land Division. And us deferring it isn't going to change their schedule. So if we defer submitting these comments, that's all we're doing is deferring the comments. The decision will still go to Land Division at the schedule that they have set. So if there's we can defer it. I just think if there's additional concerns, comments that we have, probably now is the time to include them so that we be sure that they get in front of Land Division before they make their decision.
So then I would suggest that we ask for a traffic impact study, just because of the apartment building that is still being built, and the commercial that looks like it's soon going to be open. I would question the amount of traffic and the impact that 17 more units is going to put on that intersection in that area.
Okay. Matt, go ahead.
So through you, Chair. So in the zoning section, the county is recommending zoning approval. So ultimately, if they are looking to do any, builds on that property, it'll come before council. Like I said, if they do pursue a zone amendment, so at that stage, we would look for, things like a traffic impact study, or, any other studies that might be required at that time, if that provides any reassurance to council.
Okay. So just to be clear, this is going to Land Division, and that'll only be making the decision on whether to allow the lot line adjustment or not. Any further development on the newly enlarged parcel will have to go through all the normal steps. Zoning amendment, site plan, all of those steps where we will have an opportunity at this table, a direct decision-making authority.
Precisely.
Okay, anything further on that one? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 3A. This is the agreement for parking between Wellington County, the Pentecostal Assemblies, and the Township of Wellington North. And the recommendation reads as follows. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CBO 2022-12, being a report on an agreement for parking between Wellington County, Pentecostal Assemblies, and the Township of Wellington North. And further, that council authorized the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaw to enter into a parking agreement with the corporation of the County of Wellington and the Pentecostal Assemblies. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. And we'll open the floor for questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mayor, I just have a couple of comments. I think it's a great partnership between the church, the county, and the township, and nice that the Pentecostal church is going to help out with staffing at the county medical and library building across the road. I know there's one spot during the year where they won't allow it just because they have something else going on, but it's nice to see this kind of dedication and help in our community between, like I said, the township, the county, and the Pentecostal church and all their help. I don't know, Darren, you had to quarterback this a little bit as well, so thank you for that as well.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Councillor McCabe. And yeah, to date, it's been everybody's been great to deal with. They've been very open to finding a solution to the parking downtown.
Any other questions or comments? Just to add the two that, while we don't talk about it specifically with regard to this, but this is going to allow particularly those people with disabilities and those types of things who are accessing the medical services at the library to be able to park closer and have easier access to the building to allow their ability to access those services better. So this is intended for staff so that the parking that is closer will be more accessible and available for those who really need it. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to 4A. This is in regard to the community improvement program. And the recommendation we have here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report EDO 2022-28 on the community improvement program, and further the council approves $6,367.25 in community improvement grants to Arthur Ace Hardware, 480 Smith Street, as follows: $2,500 building improvement grant, $2,500 facade improvement grant, and a $1,367.25 blade sign grant. Take a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve, and we'll open the floor for questions or comments. Steve?
Yeah, excuse me. And through you, Mayor, I happened to be through Arthur a couple of times this week and in the weeks before, and finally saw the signs in the storefronts that they're going to be filling. And it's nice to see those two, I guess, business sections going to be used. They sat vacant for quite a while, and I know I've had some people ask how much money are they getting to help with their redesign and signage, and it seems a little excessive, but I said, it's better to have it full than sitting empty. And I think what Ace Hardware is going to bring to the community will certainly offset the about $6,400 that we're going to help out to get their signages up and running. So it's a good grant, and thanks for all your work on this too, Dale.
I would add too, Councillor McCabe, that they're investing a significant amount of money to be able to access these dollars too. So this isn't just a handout. There are some strings attached, and they're coming to the table with it as well. So any other questions or comments on that one? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to 4B. This is in regard to the Hawk's Nest competition. And the recommendation is as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report EDO 2022-29, being a report on the Hawk's Nest competition, and further the council supports a $2,000 partner level of sponsorship in support of this program. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, and we'll open the floor for questions or comments.
Yes, so I'd just like to thank Dale for putting this report together. I remember, I think it was the first one I went over to, and this is such a tremendous event. I'm glad to see that they've brought it back, and I'm happy to be a sponsor. My question, Dale, is in the sponsorship package or any of the information that was attached, I didn't see how this would be promoted to folks that wanted to participate. And maybe that question's just a little too early at this point, but any information that you have on that would be great.
Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lennox, and through you, Councilor Burke, thank you for pulling this. And yeah, I remember the first one as well, and it's a great program and builds a lot of excitement. A little disappointed this one's maybe a known sound, but that might just put more emphasis on us in terms of the marketing and promotion behind it to help generate the awareness, not only within our business community, but within the whole Saugeen region. So there is a fairly extensive marketing program that'll come in behind that. Rose at the Saugeen Economic Development Corp, they have hired a Hawks Nest coordinator to coordinate all of that. So we'll look forward to sharing that information as it comes available.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to 6B. So this is in regard to the MTO Connecting Link Program application. And we have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report to Ops 2022-28, being a report on MTO Connecting Link Program application, intake number 8. And further, the council directs staff to submit an application to the MTO's Connecting Link Program for the resurfacing of Highway 6, Smith Street, from Conestoga to Wells Street in Arthur. And further, the council agree to fund the township's portion of the project cost as recommended by township staff, as well as support the project schedule detailed within the application. Okay, I can move her in a seconder for that, please. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Sherry. And we'll open the floor for questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I think this is great. Couldn't come quick enough. I don't think. It's nice to see what was done in Arthur in the past couple of years, and nice to see this continue on all the way through to the top end of Arthur and replace all the infrastructure underneath as well. So building for the future, which is always nice to see. So hoping this application is approved at the provincial level.
Any other questions or comments? I think it would be probably smart for us to maybe request a meeting with the minister to express our gratitude for the support, particularly with Queen Street East. It's much improved from what it was previously. And we've been very fortunate to access this program fairly frequently over the last number of years. And I think it's important that we convey our gratitude as well as the need for this project as well. So I absolutely think this is where we need to be with this program. And I think we need to do what we can to support it and encourage the MTO to do so as well. So with that, I will call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 7A. This is regard to council remuneration bylaw updates. And I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report CAO 2022-004, being a report on the remuneration for members of council. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a bylaw 115-22, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 79-21, being a bylaw to set remuneration for members of council for the year 2022. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a bylaw 116-22, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 62-18, being a bylaw to set remuneration for members of council for the upcoming term of council 2023 to 2026. I'm going to move her in a seconder for that, please. Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. And maybe before I open this for discussion, Brooke, I could ask you to kind of just run through what the changes we're making here are and the background.
Through the chair, thank you. Yes. So the changes here just reflect the two bylaws that need to be amended to reflect council's direction at the last council meeting to amend these bylaws to reflect the non-union wage agreement. And basically the amendments do not change the remuneration that is being proposed for the council term. That remains the same. So that would be $29,500 per year for the mayor and $19,000 per the council. The other items that remain the same are the amount for compensation related to travel expenses, which is capped at $800, as well as the 50 cents per kilometer for travel expenses. So those remain the same. The two bylaws have been amended rather to reflect the new timing of the wage increase based on the CPI calculations. So whereas they were originally calculated on July 1st, they'll now be calculated as of the CPI index September 30th. And they have been capped as well. So there's now a cap of 4% and a minimum of 0%. So between that range. And that's really the only amendments that have been made.
Okay, thank you. So that's just really to bring it in line with our non-union policy. That's not really going to change anything in terms of the remuneration, other than just make sure the policy is matching and consistent across the corporation. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, now 7B. Hey, I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CLK 2020. Sorry. Receive report CLK 2022-20 being a report on committee appointments for the 2022 to 2026 term. And further, the staff bring this report to December 5th council meeting. December 5th meeting of council, at which time appointments will be determined by council. Okay, going to mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. And I asked for this to be pulled just because I was, it would be normal for us to do these appointments at the beginning of the term, which will be our first real council meeting beyond the inaugural on December 5th. And of course, this is all up to council, how we want to proceed with this. I just would make the suggestion that it might be smart, since 80% of us are still the same people, that we maybe hold off a little bit and simply stick with what we've had previously until we complete our update or intended update for strategic planning. And then we kind of gear our committees and appointments to match with the upcoming strategic plan to better make everything line up across the organization. So it's just something for your consideration as we go forward. This matter will come to us on December 5th and we can decide how to proceed then. I guess what I'm suggesting is that we stick with the appointments we've had for the time being up until we complete the strategic plan, and ask our new member, Councillor elect Rankin, to step into Councillor Yates' position for the short interim, and let her get her feet wet a little bit too, and find out where she wants to spend some of her time. So just suggesting a bit of a pause on that. Any other questions or comments?
Mayor Lennox, I would just point out that if that's what you want to do, if council decides that at the December 5th meeting, sorry, you still have to make the appointments at the December 5th meeting to reappoint everyone to the same committees.
Right, I understand. We'll just have to just was trying to give them a heads up to kind of what I was thinking in regard to that. Steve.
And through you, Mayor Lennox, Karen. So say we all get sworn in, we all take up the mantles that we just had. If we need to change that in the new year or later on, or there is some switching up, how do we do it at that point? Just redo it?
We'll word the appointments to appoint them at the pleasure of council as opposed to the end of the term. And that way you can go back and when you figure out who's going to go on what for the term, then the next appointment will be for the term of council, but the first appointments will be at the pleasure of council.
Okay, thank you.
Or we could put a time limit of 6 months or 8 months or something on it if we wish as well.
Then we want to be pretty sure the strat planning, right?
Right.
However that works, yeah. No
Yeah, no
pressure,
pressure.
Brooke.
No
Brooke.
Lisa.
Yeah, it's kind of getting ahead of things, and I suspect this doesn't affect anything. And I'm just wondering specifically about the committee that Councillor-elect Rankin and I are both on. So I would still be the council representative, and she'd still be on the committee, correct?
So I think what you're referring to is the cultural roundtable. And I mean, this doesn't have to be completely, like what I'm suggesting doesn't need to be across the board. We can make adjustments to it as we see fit. I just was thinking as a general trend or as a general idea, let's not get too crazy about it, but be flexible so that after we have a chance to all have our input, after the public has a chance to have their input into what they see as our priorities for this term, that we can then adjust accordingly at that point in time. I guess is really where I'm going. We can appoint all we like and change it partway through. I just was just putting that out there because I think the strategic planning process will help us direct our efforts for the coming term. And if we're organized ourselves along those lines, I think it'll help us get to the target better. But yeah, I'm totally flexible. If we need to do some for the term on the 5th, that's fine. I'm just wanted to put it out there for your consideration before we get to actually making those appointments. And maybe I would ask as well is there's situations like you've identified, Councillor Hearn, that we identify those, or if somebody really wants to be on a committee or off of a committee or appointment, to identify that to Karen prior to the 5th, so that we have that information going into that meeting and have a little chance to think about it before we come to make the decision. So if any of you have those kind of thoughts, yeah, if you could just submit that. And I'm going to ask you, Karen, to kind of stick handle that if we get some of those.
Sure, yep.
And so that we have that a little bit in advance of our meeting on the 5th. And perhaps we could reach out to Councillor-elect Rankin as well, just to make sure that she has a chance to weigh in as well.
Brooke and I will be meeting with her next week, and this is one of the items that is on, that we'll talk to her about.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Any notice of motion this afternoon? Seeing none. We'll move on to community group meeting program report. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report on this afternoon? Sherry, go ahead.
So just a reminder, I think it might be on the schedules and announcements, but the Mount Forest BAA AGM is on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. at the Mount Forest Sports Complex. For anybody that's interested in attending.
Anybody of others? Go ahead, Lisa.
Nothing specific to report, but similar to Councillor Burke, I'd just like to remind everyone the Arthur BIA annual general meeting will be at the Arthur Community Center. So it might be nice to see a good turnout for that, especially since all of our meetings have been essentially COVID by Zoom. And it's on, I couldn't find it in my calendar, November the 16th. At 7. And I do have Arthur Chamber and Mount Forest Chamber meetings this week, although they're not on this schedule.
Okay. Thank you. Any others? I would just like to report I was invited to, I think others may have been invited to the appreciation dinner. I had the opportunity to attend the appreciation dinner for the Mount Forest Lawn Bowling Club. And they were very appreciative of the grants that we provided and helped to facilitate to rejuvenate that club. They were down to 5 members, and through the process are now over 50 members. It's seen a really strong resurgence, and it's great to see that that's you know, an asset and an organization that can remain in our community with new and rejuvenated volunteers, and lots of fun activities for those who have the time and inclination to do some lawn bowling. I know I was there when they had an open house in the spring, and of course I learned a lot about lawn bowling that I didn't know before, and how much it actually mimics curling in the type of play and those types of things. I think there's lots of people in our community that still don't know about lawn bowling and what kind of fun it could be. And my understanding of the game, although I have never played yet, is that it's very much like curling as well, in that there's the social aspect after the game that's an important part of it. And so for those who the last couple of years have been missing out on those types of activities, keep lawn bowling in Mount Forest in mind for next summer, because they're alive and well, and they're very grateful for the support that they've had, not only from some grants like the ones we provided, but also from business sponsors in the community that helped to make it possible too. So it's great to see a good news story, and I'd like to say thanks to Dale for stick handling that and making that come to pass. 'Cause I think that little bit of encouragement went a long way on making that possible. So with that, I don't think I have any others. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to bylaws. We have a number of bylaws here, but the recommendation is going to deal with them all at once. That bylaw number 114-22, 115-22, 116-22, 117-22, and 118-22 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. So could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Lisa. Any question on any of those bylaws? Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to our cultural moment. And thought I'd change things up a little bit today, and I've asked acting Deputy Mayor Councillor McCabe to share the cultural moment with us for today.
Happy to, and thank you. Wellington North, Women in Military Service in World Wars I and II. When Canadian women served in both world wars, it was mostly on the home front, raising money and replacing men whose military service took them away from all types of work. In World War I, they also served as nurses in the Canadian Army Nursing Service. Nursing Sister Alice Cook of Mount Forest gave her life to the service of injured and ill soldiers in a wartime Toronto hospital, dying of influenza at age of 25. Her story was shared as our November 2020 cultural moment. By World War II, although women were not allowed to serve in combat, they took on many crucial roles in the various services, both in Canada and in Europe. Women of Wellington North were well represented in nearly every branch. 2 Raftis sisters from West Luther, Genevieve Marie and Mary Marcella, enlisted in the Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service, also known as WRENS, trained on HMCS Conestoga and were posted in 1945 to HMSC Strathcona Base, Halifax. There they served as nursing aides as well as taking on other necessary work. Marjorie Driscoll from Arthur also served in the Wrens as the fourth member of her family to serve and sign up. She had already earned her bachelor's degree at the University of Toronto. Erie Mae Jackson of Conn, a prolific writer throughout her life, especially of biographical and autobiographical books, joined the Canadian Women's Army Corps in 1944. She rose to the rank of sergeant and qualified as a non-commissioned officer. The Wellington County Museum holds her writings. Several women followed their brothers or cousins into service. Pearl Ida Day joined the CWAC in Toronto, while her four brothers served overseas. Mildred Colwell, who also enlisted in the Women's Army Corps in 1942, was the sixth member of her family to serve in the Army. Isabel Jean Mullen joined the Army in the spring of 1942 at 18 and served in the Women's Army Corps. She was transferred to England, where she worked as a driver for the Canadian Army officers. In some cases, little information is available on these resolute women. Claire Connell, for instance, is only briefly mentioned in the Arthur Enterprise News in 1944. Ms. Claire Connell joined the RCAF. Many may now be known only to their families or to the keepers of military records. No matter how they have been remembered, these Wellington North women must always be honored for their loyalty and courage in answering their country's call to service. They set the bar for those local women who currently are doing the same. And this was submitted by Gail Donald from the Wellington North Cultural Roundtable.
Great. Thanks, Steve. We have a closed meeting session, but before we go to that, I'll just draw your attention to the announcements at the end of our agenda. Here in that we have a Recreation Parks and Leisure Committee for tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. As was mentioned, the Mount Forest BIA AGM is 8 a.m. on Wednesday this week, the 9th. Of course, Remembrance Day celebrations both in Arthur and Mount Forest will be on Friday. The Arthur BIA has their annual general meeting on the 16th, as was mentioned earlier. Mount Forest is having their ladies' night deals at dusk on November 17th. And Arthur countdown to Christmas celebrations start Saturday, November 19th and run until Friday, December 2nd. Follow Facebook Christmas time in Arthur for that one. The inaugural meeting of council will be 2 weeks from today, November 21st at 7 p.m. And the Arthur Miracle on George Street, Thursday, November 24th from 5 to 9 p.m. The Arthur Santa Claus Parade will be November 26th at 7 p.m. And the Mount Forest Lions Christmas Parade will be Friday, December 2nd at 7 p.m. And then our next regular meeting of council will be Monday, December 5th, 2022. And before we move to the closed meeting session, I'd also like to mention the recognition of our colleague, Councillor Yake, who's not able to be here with us today, but he was recently honored by our provincial MPP for his years of service to the community and to council. He's been 28 years serving as a council member for town of Mount Forest and then subsequently Wellington North. And it's wonderful that he was able to be honored for the 25 years of service by our provincial counterpart. So congratulations to Councillor Yake, and thank him very much for all his years of service to our community. With that, I will move to our closed meeting session. I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North go into a meeting at 2:54 p.m. that is closed to the public under subsection 239 2 of the Municipal Act 2001, specifically to deal with item B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and item D, labor relations or employee negotiations. And we'll deal with the reports EDO 2022-27, the Ontario Volunteer Service Awards nomination, and report HR 2022-14, proposed QP agreement, July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2024. and a review of the closed meeting minutes from our October 11th, 2022 closed session. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa. All those in favor? That's carried. We are in closed session.
So just give me a second to lock the meeting, and I have still some attendees here I have to remove.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, and just let me lock it. And I will pause the recording. I don't know, all this cold medicine, I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay.